The Stake F1 team, God, what a name, has released their C44 car and livery reveal. And it is definitely one of the most vibrant liveries we've had in a very long period of time. But the car also tells us a lot, and this is everything you really need to know about the C44 and the upgrades that it's brought, also the things that it's hiding and why it's a completely different car to what they had in last year's season. Before getting into the video, please subscribe and like. That would mean the world for me. We're doing amazing, and I'm only going to continue with this. Williams did not have a car reveal, but as soon as they do, I'm doing every single team. So Williams will be there as well. So let's get into the C44 Sauber. Starting from the front of the car, like I did with the Haas, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to start from the front wing, which I will tell you right now, I'm pretty sure that this front wing is the exact same front wing that they had of last year. It was on that C43, but towards, I think somewhere around Singapore is when they changed this front wing. Specifically, I know because of the nose and the amount of flaps and how they did it. They have this weird straight angled front wing. Not most teams had that, and I always thought when I saw it here, I was like, okay, this is a front wing that was from the last year's car, and I didn't really think too much of it. The outwash is the exact same. Not really much changed. I expect a completely different front wing running in Bahrain. This is something that they're hiding, but from this picture alone, and the renders of this car are beautiful. Like, genuinely, it looks great. I'm a fan of the livery. Yes, it's fully carbon, but I do think it looks really good with its vibrancy. But as you can tell, and the biggest thing and most important thing to know is the suspension here has changed. And James Key even talks about why they changed it from push rod to pull rod. So push rod is what they were running on the C43. Now they're running the pull rod suspension, which is ran by McLaren. It's ran by Red Bull, and we're pretty sure that this Visa Cash App team, VCarb, is going to run the pull rod suspension in 2024 as well. They get their car reveal on Thursday, so we'll be able to see it as well. He even says it's a aerodynamic gain. He's not even mentioning it as mechanical. He's saying that aerodynamically and mechanically, this is the better compromise to have for the car in the front. I did mention a video ago that it's not that important, and I still stand by that. I don't think it's that important in how much time it gains you if you don't know what you're doing with it. But clearly, Adrian Newey has figured something out, and the Red Bull car will only continue to get better under that suspension layout, so more teams are switching to it. James Key was one of the people over there at McLaren that actually pushed for that pull rod. They're sticking with it. Look at the McLaren car. And if you want to be realistic, the McLaren 2023 car was pretty much still from James Key, and he still helped a lot in working on that car. So I wouldn't really doubt his abilities here at Sauber, or Stake F1 team, whatever you want to call it. I still think he's going to be very good here. Him going with that pull rod really tells you something, but something that is hidden, and I thought it would be on the car, is a part on the suspension where they made these divots as to kind of pulling it into that floor. I do think that's still going to show up on the car. I just think they hid it for some reason in this render, or what they put even on the show car. But making our way now to this side of the car, because we pretty much got the front down. Now, this is a pretty drastic change, and I do think that they're still hiding elements to this car, even in the side view. Now, the biggest thing you're going to obviously look at first is the side pod, and the side pod has a way bigger undercut, and I'm talking about extreme, and it implements levels of Red Bull, and funny enough, the W14. Now, for Red Bull, obviously the side pod, you look at that side pod inlet from the side, very much outwards, kind of those paper plane side pods as we call them, and it dips down into a huge, almost little cavern part to that side pod towards the end, and that is where the W14 adopted the same type of thing. That was where their car in Belgium got that upgrade, and I'll put that up on screen. It is very similar to that, to keep that air and kind of give it more rear downforce. That's what the W14 was aiming for. And I do know that when they were talking about the 2023 car, they were complaining mainly about the rear end if they had any complaints. They said the car was actually pretty stable, it was just slow. So a lot of this is going to be aero efficiency for this car, because it is a completely different aero concept to what they had before. They didn't have an undercut before. It's a way more drastic one. The actual floor itself, even though this is probably a rendered floor and not the full complete one. I mean, last year we had that ridiculous like shark tooth looking type floor. That's nothing to what we have now, but it does look like a somewhat real floor with this whole entire going up, and the floor edge itself has those raised parts from the Venturi tunnel is outwash. They do have that floor edge, but still looks pretty underdeveloped. Nothing that I think is going to be on that final part of the car. And the actual difference between the side pod and the engine cover, we do have a little bit of a slide pod, and we'll go into a different angle to actually check that out. And the last thing though from this side angle before we go into the other one is for the rear wing, they don't have that wingtip cutout, which I do think will be on the car. Even though right now they're not showing it, I think that rear wing is not a fully upgraded one just yet. There are things that are notable on it, but not to this level. This is where I wanted to show you that waterfall part. And when you're looking up top, to me, this car is visibly very similar to the Williams car. As in, they don't have these Jurassic slide pods because the slide pods themselves, mainly there to give rear downforce, but they also promote a little bit of drag, hence why the AMR and the McLaren are a bit slower, but they have very good downforce. It's good for a few things, but it does promote a good amount of drag because of the air getting sucked up there in that rear part of the car. You want it to be more efficient. That's why Red Bull never really went for that slide pod design. Their rear stability is insane without even having to adopt that because so much of it is going to the floor. And the way that this car is designed, it does seem like they're trying to pick up on that concept, a hugely reliant car on the floor, because other teams are kind of in that mix. Ferrari obviously went for the overcut, and Sauber was very, very much in between last year. It didn't even seem like they knew what they were doing and what design concept they wanted. But this year, they put in these little humps on the side like the Williams car had in 2023, and I think in 2024, it'll probably have that as well. And the engine cover is bigger than it was last year, pushing towards the back to give it more rear stability, but also faster speeds going down that straight line. They were a decent car in straight line. They just kind of had issues really all around. They were slow in slow speed, in medium speed, and high speed. They had a couple of decent performances like the one in Hungary, but all in all, the car was not really in the fight for the most part, and they're trying to bring that aero efficiency. But the simplicity in this car is kind of what kills it for me. There's a lot of hiding here when talking about it. If you look at it from this view, obviously you can now see that those little humps on the side pods are a little bit more visible from this view. You see that more Red Bull side pod inlet, and you see that the roll hoop has actually been changed. Finally, they changed that roll hoop. I never understood why Alfa Romeo / Steak, whatever it is right now, went for that. It never really made much sense to me. And you can also see that the rear suspension is push rod, going with that pull rod push rod suspension, just like the Red Bull, just like the McLaren. This is a constant trend that I think we're going to continue to see between the cars. I definitely think we're going to see it on the Visa Cash app. And you can also see from this view that their undercut is even bigger than the actual Haas car. This is more of a Red Bull car than the Haas car was. A lot of people mention that the Haas looks like an RB19. Well, I would say this is pretty much as much of an RB19 as you can get without fully copying it. Obviously, we might see something even more extreme to level with the side pods and that little outwash side pod cut that they have. They didn't go for that, but they have the gullies that aren't very deep, and the Red Bull still has some gullies that aren't that deep, the humps that I was talking about. So it is very similar in that aspect. But the last part to talk about is the rear of the car. One more thing that I wanted to mention about the side pods, when you look at it in comparison to its 2023 version, you can see how much more outwards that side pod was, how much more in they put it. They actually made the actual width of the car, besides the floor, because the floor regulations and so on, you obviously want that floor to be the main part of your car. The actual side pod part itself has changed drastically on this car. It was way wider on the past car, way more in now to give it that more straight line shot. That's what they're going for, at least, to shred more drag with the setup that they have currently. As you can see from here, very Red Bull-esque with that whole entire engine cover, but look at the beam wing, which that will be changed throughout the season. So I don't really expect this to be something that they're going to just put on a render and be like, oh, this is what's going to be set on the car. I don't think so, but you can see that they kind of have that Williams-esque side pod design from the rear of the car. And the rear wing itself, I do think, as I said before, it's a fake. It's not the real rear wing that's going to be on the car. It's too bulky. This almost looks like the W13 barn door if you look at it from this back view. And you can see a little bit of the diffuser, but yet again, I also think that's fake as well. There's no way that they're going to show these parts of the car. They're too valuable to other teams to pick up on little designs, even if it is a team that's probably going to run towards the bottom. When you look at this car, it's pretty much all conventional. It's like they took the parts from the best cars and put it into one car. That's pretty much what this car is. And there really isn't anything uniquely crazy about this car when it comes to setup or what they've done aero-wise to make it such a huge innovation. Not much innovations, just picking up on the best. And hopefully this car is a lot better. It looks slick. I mean, the green, like I have it in the back. I like this color. I think it looks cool in the car and it'll add some color to the grid. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So please leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and peace.